Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Around the Flock. Thank you for joining us this evening. I really do appreciate everyone's patience with the delayed episodes on some of the more recent weeks. Um, it's been a little bit of an interesting time. But, anyways, wanted to go over some of the more recent events of this past week. Yet, as of just yesterday, we had our press or the Ravens presser for the first off-season go around. And my wife and I, we were out and about doing our own thing, having a good time, and then all of a sudden, I looked down my phone because the ATB group chat was kind of going nuts, and I saw Roman is gone. Now, going into that, it's like I was wondering, like, wait, this can't be true. Then all of the NFL analysts and reporters, like Ian Rappaport, for example, had confirmed via a press release that former offensive coordinator Greg Roman had resigned. Now, when I read that, it looks like he both could have resigned to go find other opportunities, and it could have been that he had gotten fired. Could go either way, but just the way that that thing was written out indicates to me that he was, or basically quit to, well, he was essentially told to resign or instructed, whatever you want to call it. So that way, he didn't have to be officially fired. It was an interesting turnaround, but everyone in the Ravens flock was just entirely thrilled, or at least most of the flock, anyways. Once we all found out, it was awesome. I mean, wish him best of luck in his future endeavors. The guy was a master class at the run game for because tight ends and running backs thrive in his system. Now, utilizing certain said running backs was obviously a weak point, but in the passing game, it lacked strength, it lacked structure. There was no It was hard to get. There's reasons why wide receivers don't want to come to Baltimore, or big name free agent wide receivers at that. It was that style offense. Now, going into the press conference a little bit, or into the actual press conference, they had shown confidence that Lamar is 200% going to be back. And they have also made it clear that Lamar is going to be in helping or assisting with the process of finding the new offensive coordinator, whether it be off or externally or internally. Now, before I get into any external candidates, because just today we had some talk going around that the Ravens had requested a certain quarterbacks coach and passing game specialist to interview. But it's definitely an interesting scenario, this or nonetheless. But internally, if we are looking at certain coordinator or certain personnel, I would like to still go with T. Martin or um, James Urban. Now, the reason why I say that is obviously because T. Martin, when he was with Tennessee, obviously as a player, and even he was the guy to go to. He was phenomenal as a college wide receiver. He translated pretty well into the league, but once he transitioned into the coaching coaching, he did really well across all levels at all schools and even in here in the league. He is doing wonders with these wide receiver groups and making them excited to be involved. Obviously, there's been some mishaps with certain players, such as James Prochet and unfortunately Tylan Wallace. Um, Now, with Tylan Wallace, obviously, we just kind of he's got hit with the injury bug real bit or real bad. Obviously, he needs to have time to develop because he's on year 2 now. So hopefully he'll break out in year 3. James Prochet, I'm sorry, you've signed your deal out the way or deal out. And we're gonna go on and on about this, but going on to James Urban, the reason why I would like to see him as a candidate for this offensive coordinator position is because he works with Lamar one on one. He sits with him most of the time, discusses, talks, and does what he needs to do. We would see a lot of creativity and input from James Urban if he was selected as the new OC. But with how things have kind of went, it's going to be a little interesting to see how this team goes forward with an internal candidate. Those two coaches right there that I had just talked about, just listed, those are the only two that I would promote internally as a offensive coordinator. Now, as far as externally, there's been a lot of talk there or around the flock. So there was mentions of Clay Kubiak, um, Anthony Lynn, and just let's see. There was one. Where was the most recent one? I have it pulled up here somewhere. I believe it was Zach Richardson. I think I've got it that right. But one of the basically someone from the Shanahan McVay tree. That is what we're looking for. That guy is a hot commodity, and people are already starting to interview him for offensive coordinator. The last time we had success from an actual offensive coordinator that wasn't Greg Roman in his first year as or OC or with a fresh Lamar. Well, second year with a fresh, yeah. Anyways, was Gary Kubiak. I loved Gary Kubiak's offense. If it weren't for a Dean Pease blown prevent defense and some mishaps with the offense there towards the end, um, with some miscommunication and ball placement, the Ravens would have been on their way to a Super Bowl in 2014. It is what it is, though. So Gary Kubiak had that offense down pat. So it wouldn't be a true or a shock if Clay Kubiak did a good job with turning this offense around. But Lamar giving his input, I know already for a fact based off the tweet that we had all seen already that he is looking for an offensive coordinator who would run a pro style offense. Now, I have to do more research on that style of offense because I'm a little behind. So, we'll see what happens. There's a lot of time before the league new year comes around. We could see them get someone in and hired as soon as next week. We could see have them by the league or shortly after the league new year. We just have to wait and see. Now with the wide receiver room, when they talked about that on at the presser, it looks like they're going to keep some core guys, but it also looks like they are going to completely rebuild and restructure that wide receiver room. They're going to be looking to add some veteran or aggressive veteran presence, whether that be via trade or via free agency or even in the draft. All three options are viable options according to what EDC had said. And I feel like with the departure of Greg Roman, you could obviously tell that these two guys are ready to move, actually genuinely excited and ready to move forward. I know that they were on the whole stone left unturned thing last year. We were expecting the whole thing to basically be the same. But I'm expecting them to take a slash at like I've already seen it a couple times that Jackson Smith from Ohio State or the JSN. Now there's some other or and there's a kid from USC that I've been seeing on a couple mock drafts already. And as far as the trade or free agency, there's DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, Odell Beckham Jr. could be a plausible piece going forward. Now, I am wondering if anyone would be more enticed to come now that Greg Roman's no longer leading the offense. Even though a lot of the culture is still going to stand, and according to John Harbaugh, it's going to be a little bit different, or only going to be a little different as far as their mentality goes. But you bring in an OC who is not run first or aggressively, or I don't know what the exact word I'm looking for is at this point. But either way, It's not going to be a complete rebuild of the offense, but it is going to be a partial rebuild for that room. We're obviously going to still have Bateman. We're still going to have Duvernay, and hopefully we can keep Demarcus Robinson. That would be awesome. But we're going to see James Prochet go. We're going to see Tylan Wallace probably go, and so on and so forth. This is a rebuild that this team needs. And we'll see what happens. Now, as far as and let's also talk about the Lamar or contract talks for a second, because like Harbaugh said, he's going to be here 200% sure. EDC, I don't think said much about it outside of that he's ready to be, or he's excited to start contract talks again. And I do believe that Lamar is representing himself. Roquan or represented himself, so I don't see any problems there. There has been some inner circle rumors that if Roman was indeed gone, that Lamar was for sure going to stay. He was going to take a deal that he was worth and going to go from there. I'm ex- Listen, I'm excited. Now, there was rumors going around that it was going to be 160 to 180 guaranteed, with like 230, was it? Anyways, I do know that since this news has broke, that they're gonna throw the money at him. Yes, just threw the money at Roquan. He took the deal. He got paid as the highest paid linebacker in his position. They're going to make Lamar one of the highest paid. There's no doubt in my mind. And they're going to make him a Raven for life, or at least a good chunk of his career. The next 5 to 6 years are going to be wonderful. Now, this is just my opinion. Anyone else who I have sent a link to, it's going to be awesome. And it sounds like we are going to have a guest here shortly. Yeah. And I'm going to be letting him air out both his grievances and let him give his happy. So just let's bear a couple moments. I'm going to continue to talk about this presser that we had gone forward with the Lamar contract talks, because of the fact that Lamar is going to be this team's franchise quarterback. There's no doubt in my mind. And the fact that they had given him the Kyler Murray treatment as far as having input on who is going to be the next OC speaks much boundaries upon boundaries on what this organization really wants to do with this guy. It's going to be awesome. It's just a matter of both him and the organization coming up on that final number. whether it be the money, whether it be the length. Have we actually seen a 6-year deal yet? Or a 7-year deal? I think it's only been 5, though. This is the longest we've seen so far. If they make it a 6-year deal, that's going to be a nice spread open. But it's I'm just excited. I am silent due to the fact that I have so many wonderful words to say with this presser. It's been awesome. Now, as far as the draft goes, when they were talking about it and going, it was just it really seems like they were focused on the fixing the wide receiver room because this draft class is wide receiver heavy. They're gonna fill some spots in the cornerback room. I would say, depending on what they do with Marcus Peters and with some of the free agent corners coming in. I'd have to take a look at the whole free agent list. I just had it too. I had managed to lose it, but I'm gonna go find that real quick before our guest shows up. And for those of you who are watching, I kind of created a Twitter circle and posted a invite link to that Twitter circle. So I apologize if you're watching and you did not read it or receive it. So there's that. And I'm gonna find that. It's free. Okay, there it is. So as far as the corner or the wide receiver room, there's only one wide receiver that's a free under restricted free agent. That's Demarcus Robinson. Now in the cornerback room, we got Marcus Peters, Kyle Fuller, Daryl Worley, Kevon Seymour. Oh, and Sammy Watkins. He's also an unrestricted free agent. Seymour, and that's about it. They could also take a look at some of the interior offensive line in this class as well, or just offensive line over in general, because we got Juwan James as a unrestricted free agent. We have TCC as a restricted free agent, and Ben Powers as an unrestricted free agent. Now, talking about Ben Powers, for a quick moment, he did really well as far as just how or improving in general. Um, we were all kind of hesitant on him coming on in and being the starting left guard, obviously, especially with how his performance was last season and just how they had him on a weird rotation. And then he just comes in this year and just straight up dominates. He was my offensive player of the week a couple of times, and I want to just say that that has been wonderful. And it's just it's just wonder or an amazing thing. He's been doing really well, especially with him or continuing to improve. I do know that there was a tweet earlier about him with he stated that he really has no idea what's next for him, but he has loved the past 4 years in Baltimore. Bradley Bozeman essentially had the same answer, but was a little more emotional there toward or in his press conference last year at the end of season presser, which kind of indicates that they or he will be moving on from the team and testing the waters. It, it's gonna be hard to see, and which is kind of interesting if you want to think about it because I didn't get his jersey there at the end of the season, so there's a good chance that he might resign. So as long as I didn't get his jersey, he's gonna resign. So we're just gonna have to play or see how it turns out. We may end up having a deal here within the or next 2 weeks. I would say if, or we could see wait till or yeah, I can't talk tonight. The league new year is going to be a large indicator for a lot of these restricted and unrestricted free agents. I'm going to enjoy watching the ins and outs of this offensive line and how it's going to turn out. We obviously still have Ronnie Stanley under a massive contract. Morgan Moses is going into year two. Kevin Zeitler is on his last year of his 3-year deal. I think it was a 3-year deal, or was it a 2 for 1? I'd have to look that up. Shit. And obviously, Tyler Linderbaum had a phenomenal rookie season. So that puts a giant question on who's going to be the starting left guard going into 2023 for the 2023-2024 season. If Ben Powers decides to test the waters, go to another team, there's a good chance that we could have Patrick McCarry step into that left guard role like we all originally thought. There's a chance Ben Cleveland could obviously earn that spot considering he was a phenomenal rotational piece there at in that position as well. Having TCC be a restricted free agent and possibly testing the waters to go off would put a damper in the depth of our offensive line. So I think this draft is more or less, depending on who resigns and who goes, will be a depth draft slash wide receiver room breakdown. So we'll just have to see. Now, as far as the position that will need the most depth going forward will probably be obviously edge rusher, because the fact that Justin Houston is on his or had finished his 1 year deal. Oweh is going into his third year. Malik Harrison is on could be heading into a do or die situation. Tyus Bowser obviously is going into his second year of the deal. And Jabo, he is going in, hopefully not going to have a sophomore slump. Obviously, he's going to be doing real well next season. I'm hoping, because he's going to have a actual full year going forward. But there's some veteran players who are going to be missed if they don't come back. Cornerback is also another one, like I had just spoken about. If Marcus Peters doesn't resign, gonna have to go to the drawing board about that. It's kind of hard to nitpick right now because there's a lot of gray area, especially with the Peters situation, with the wide receiver room outside of like 2 or 3 different people. That free agent list is long. There are a lot of key rotational pieces. And having that breath of fresh air, it's going to be awesome. It's awesome. Now, I do want to take a quick moment to shout out the guys over at the Zone 32 podcast. Those guys are amazing. I had the privilege of joining them the other night on with their recording. It was so fun. I had laughed my tail end off like no other for the first time in a while. Just like straight or an hour of almost nonstop laugh. Those guys are phenomenal. Parental discretion is advised, but it's always great to have wonderful people on the flock. Now, since we have gone through that quick shout out, I would also love to welcome in a wonderful guest and member of the flock, Marshall, aka Mr. Yuri, a fellow Charlie Kohler stan. What's going on, sir? Can you hear
How
me?
am I doing tonight? Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Is there no background noise or anything? No delay? Good?
Oh, sir. We can all hear you pretty well. Hopefully, everyone who has been tuning in, whether it's Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube, has been tuning in. We're glad to have you. We've pretty much gone over a lot of the presser, a lot of speculation, and kind of random talk throughout the Ravens team. I just want to welcome you on and let you air out your happiness and frustrations, even though most of us had already aired out the frustrations post Bengals loss. But now, since we got this breath of fresh air, now that Greg Roman is gone and that full first off-season presser has been released, just let it loose there, sir.
If I'm being honest, I don't have anything that I'm like angry about right now. I'm not really that upset. It's the off season. The off season is always a good time. Go make a mock draft. Go make an unrealistic mock draft from PFF. Go look at some free agents out there. Go look at some of the players contract, and a lot of the websites that I use are pretty accurate in terms of like where they value a player's contract. So go look at whoever your favorite player this offseason, go look at their contract and go look at their cap space and see if we can fit them under there. But the offseason is a good time. Once championship round weekend is over with, I will start looking at prospects. But I'm not really that like upset. The season's over. It is what it is. They fired Greg Roman. It was a year and a half too late, probably, but we move on. As if it felt like a very big breath of fresh air. That press conference, it really did. And I know it's usually the liars' luncheon, and they go and lie and tell us a whole bunch of things that they won't really have to do. But I feel like this year it was a little bit different.
Absolutely. This year's press conference, like you just said, and we've stated multiple times already on this show, it's a breath of fresh air. It was that final, breakup from that toxic ex. I see you shaking your head, but I mean, it's kind of true at this point. It's not just or to damper Greg Roman too much because we have already all done that so much throughout the season and last season. But this is a time to give thanks. Like we had all said, this press conference was a breath of fresh air. And what are your takes away from that presser? Obviously, they had talked about Lamar and him being back, and that I'm pretty sure they made it very clear that he's going to be involved with the choice of the offensive coordinator. I've already seen some of your thoughts on that with the tweets, but elaborate that for those who are just still joining us or um, that haven't seen your prospects for going for our offensive coordinator going forward.
So, in terms of Lamar being a part of the process and the offensive coordinator hiring, it's hard. It's hard to like predict who is going to be the offensive coordinator because they could go interview literally everybody that I want, and then the last interview they do with like Matt Nagy, and Matt Nagy will be your offensive coordinator. So, um, uh, I don't know. I felt like the press conference quelled some of my questions about Lamar's future here, but they every year they do something where they keep saying it, and I'm like, why do you keep saying that? And they kept bringing up that Lamar's our quarterback, blah blah blah, and they kept making a point of emphasis. So I'm about 50-50 if he's going to be here or not. I mean I was at 30-70 that he was going to go. As a 70% I thought he was going to leave, but I think the press conference brought me up a little bit. But I'm not too pressed either way. But in regards to who I want as OC, yeah, I think I like Ben Slawick, the 49ers pass game coordinator, I think, and then the assistant quarterback coach for the 49ers as well. His name is Clay Kubiak. And that's just not for the namesake. Oh, it's a Kubiak. Why don't we try it again? Like, no, he's pretty good at his job. I mean, he's got a Mr. Irrelevant out there playing pretty darn well. He's been there for 3 years, so we go back 3 years. That means he was there when Jimmy G made the Super Bowl. And if you can coach Jimmy Garoppolo to make a Super Bowl, I think that's pretty impressive to me. So those would be my two main candidates, and then you have Clint Kubiak, the other Kubiak son. I think he's a wide receiver coach. He might be the passing coordinator in Denver. And I know Denver, they sucked, but it's dumpster fire, whatever. Maybe we can go find a diamond in the rough. But besides that, you got Ben Johnson, the some sort of coach for the Eagles. I don't know what his title is, but I know he's the Eagles quarterback coach, pass game coordinator, one of the two.
I think you or yeah, Kevin Patullo, same with the Eagles. He's the passing game coordinator while Ben Johnson is the quarterbacks coach. I'd love to have either one of those two for the Eagles. I would also love to have anyone from the 49ers Shanahan tree, which would be awesome. And I'm with you there on the Kubiak thing. I had just talked about that a little earlier, but it's pretty awesome how we're all just finally having this moment of excitement.
Yeah, I mean, I've been asking for a while. I want like very much so. I want someone that can run wide zone like that. That is my coordinator. Like main main requirement, main thing I have to check off the box from like, okay, I want this guy. Like I want someone that can run wide zone. I want someone that where we run play action, everybody's moving laterally, and the backside defenders can be held because you have Lamar Jackson and uh, the fact that Lamar Jackson is just a dangerous runner. The edge defender just can't crash. They can't crash on play action because Lamar holds them there. So that allows a little bit of a numbers game once you actually start going to running off of that. And it's just been something I've been wanting for like a very long time. And so today we interviewed someone. The name forgets me, but you know the name, PT?
I think it's. I want to say it's Robinson, Zach
Yeah, yeah.
Robinson.
Brian Robinson. I don't know. But yeah, him that definitely intrigues me. McVay, Gentry, that's good enough. I'll check the box. I don't care. He could have had a conversation with Kyle Shanahan once. I'd be like, all right, whatever. As long as he's talked to him, let's go. Um, but yeah, I just feel like that's my main focus. That's what I want. I don't want some old Frank Reich. I don't want um, Matt Nagy. I don't want Anthony Lynn. I don't want someone that's like this just old, out of touch old man who's been fired and thrown around like a rag doll and like an ex. Like I just don't want that. I want someone new. I want someone young. I want someone who can innovate. As you can see, with Mike McDonald, he's 36 years old, and he's. I mean, the first couple of weeks looked rough, and then next thing you know, from week 11 on or week 8 on, whatever it was, the trade deadline, we looked like one of the best defenses in the NFL. So someone that's young, someone that can adapt, and I think the last requirement I have is someone that can challenge Harbaugh just a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. I want someone that's got a little bit of an ego. I don't want another yes man. I think I'm done with the yes man.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And as far as staying on the offense, I had just talked about it just right before you actually had gotten or joined in. As far as the wide receiver rebuild, who are the two or a couple of players that they're going to keep, and who are they going to bring in to help with that wide receiver rebuild?
I mean, who I think they'll keep? They'll probably keep. Um, well, they'll obviously keep Bateman, and then Duvernay, he plays special teams. Will probably keep him. He does have a $4 million cap hit though, so that is something to look at. But Prochet and Wallace, like they'll probably cut Prochet. If I'm being honest, they'll keep Wallace just because he still has a few more years on his deal. I think he was drafted 2021. Yeah, so he has another extra year on his deal. So I think they'll cut Prochet. Demarcus Robinson, that's a 50-50 if they'll keep him. Now, what I would do is I'd let all of them go. If I'm being honest, um, I'll keep Bateman. Devin Duvernay can go. Marcus Robinson can go. Tylen Wallace can go. And James Prochet can go. They can all go. And when they say the words, we want to rebuild this wide receiver room, Tylen Wallace is probably the only player that I would be like, you know what, he's cheap, whatever, special teams, he's a gunner. So that's the only guy I'd be like, okay, yeah, whatever, keep him. But DeMarcus Robinson, the Cincinnati game, he literally dropped everything. I'm good. I'm good. He holds the ball like a loaf of bread. I'm okay. Um, so now who I would bring in to fill in that core would be, and I just put out a tweet. Um, The Ravens can feasibly trade back with Arizona, who has pick 34 in the draft, and it would, according to the JJ chart, if they traded back and they got pick 34 and DeAndre Hopkins for pick 22, um, that would be equivalently saying that you value DeAndre Hopkins' trade worth as a late second, early third. I think that's fair. So I would do that trade. And I just looked it up. Darius Slayton, the wide receiver from the Giants. I know we talked about him like the preseason, thinking maybe he's a cut. Ends up being the best wide receiver of the Giants. Currently, Sport Track has him at $3.5 million a year for value. So sign him to like a 2 year, 8 million, 9 million type deal. Backload the deal a little bit. There, you got DeAndre Hopkins as your X possession receiver. You have Bateman as your Z, and then you have Slayton as your backup Z, backup X slash slot, and then the last player I think I would add to that is the is Raheem Jarrett. I think he's your new true slot. He's 6 foot. His 40 air quickness. He's not the greatest route runner, but you can put him in space, and that's what I would do.
I'm actually looking at this tweet here. I kind of briefly saw it a little bit ago while I was at dinner, and I was just like, I like this because you got your speedster and the guy who was willing to go up and get the ball in hop. You got your hybrid. Always called him a hybrid receiver, the guy who can go up, or the guy who can do your short routage, or hell, even sometimes speedster. But and then Slayton being a on the edge or slant. We've seen him do so many different things in New York. It's phenomenal what he is capable of doing. And I have to do some research on this Jarrett kid. He seems like a real big favorite in the Maryland area, so just got to take a look at him. Uh, I like your mock draft here with the Jarrett Patterson with the round 3 pick. So that's pretty awesome. Is that pick mainly in case Ben Powers decides to go?
Yeah, yeah. So fun fact, I think last year there was a Notre Dame lineman coming out, and I accidentally watched him. It was him. It was Jared Patterson. He was supposed to come out, and he went back to school. And I like if we're gonna go to a wide zone scheme, I like him. I like him a lot. He's a very athletic lineman. He's like last year. If you couldn't get Linderbaum in the first, like get him in the third or fourth, and like that would be your like diet Linderbaum. But apparently, I guess he's now listed at guard. So I mean, I like him. I like him. We had a second. I take him in the second, but we don't. So I want him. I want him a lot. And yeah, I think Ben Powers is gone. If I'm being honest, I do. He could test the market like Bozeman did last year, and I think that the Ravens did learn their lesson with Bozeman last year because they offered him a very dumb contract before he hit the market, and thankfully he did not take it and thought he could get more, which was crazy. But yeah, I think Powers is gone. I think I think we'll draft the guard at some point, and that's what I think. That's what I think they'll draft. That's my pick.
Okay, awesome. But it's I like the draft that you've got. I like the wide receivers that you decided to um, take a educated guess at, more or less. It's just awesome. The and defensively, where do you think that the team will stand going into 2023, 2024? Because obviously Marcus Peters looking to re-sign him. We already re-signed Raquan Smith to the huge deal, for example. What do you think about some of our veteran guys such as Marcus Peters, Justin Houston, Calais Campbell, and so on and so forth? How do you think our defense is going to differ from this year versus for into the next?
Um, I think I want Marcus to stay. I really do, but I think that he's gone. I just think that there was clearly it felt like it wasn't going to happen this year. What they weren't going to, he was going to come back and pick four balls off, and then they're going to resign him. So I don't think I'd love him to have him back. I mean maybe he comes back on some team friendly deal, but I don't see it happening. Um, I think Calais might come back, but I don't want him back on that contract. For being honest, I would much prefer if Calais came back on like the veteran minimum or something for 2.5 million, but he's got a $9 million cap hit next year, and that's too much. I think they trade Patrick Queen in the offseason. Um, they tried last year and it just didn't work out. But I think now that he's had another year under his belt, they'll give it another go. And then I think Chuck Clark. I think they'll probably try and trade him as well. If not, they'll probably post June 1st cut him so they can free up a little bit of money for the in season, you know, signings. And then yeah, I think this defense is like. I mean, Justin Houston. I'd love to have him back, but he had 9.5 sacks this year. I don't what is maybe he wants to cash out on his last good season and go somewhere for like a 1 year 10 million instead of coming back here for a 1 year 2.5 million. So um, I mean they could probably look either in the draft or free agency and try and get a depth veteran edge player. But yeah, the cornerback spot, I think that's my biggest concern. I think along with everybody else. Um, and I wouldn't be surprised they spent a little bit there in free agency. It all this like I don't say it's for nothing, but um, this just depends on Lamar's contract, man.
I completely understand. I completely agree. These guys are usually a defense first organization, and they made that very clear. But we would just have to see what Lamar decides to do, and what they decide to throw at Lamar. That boils down to it, because it always seems like 1 year they'll refocus heavily on the defense, and then go straight in. Uh, and then this is just going back to the Flacco days. Then the following year, they would focus on the offense, getting Flacco more weapons, getting him. Now with Lamar being, on the team, it just seems like they were all focused in on the defense and counting too heavily on some other stuff going on with the offense. Hopefully, that they were just like, you know what, with Roman being the offensive coordinator, we can make something happen. But I'm so glad they moved forward with Roman. They obviously have a phenomenal offensive line. Just have to see the power situation, the wide receiver room rebuild. Well, I feel like this is going to be an offensive off season versus our normal defensive. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I would. I would. I mean, last offseason they kind of from that and the trade deadline, they really went in on the defense. Marcus Williams, Roquan Smith, Michael Pierce. I mean, there's your three kind of key quote unquote offseason signings. I mean, Morgan Moses is a average right tackle. I don't care what PFF says. Um, I mean, they got Linderbaum. That's first round selection. So, but they went for Kyle Hamilton at 14 and a wide receiver one heavy draft class. So they wanted to, they could have traded up. I don't think that there was like this whole, you know, oh, everyone says you should trade up, but it never happens in reality. Man, we had 11 picks. You got to make something happen. I think Detroit traded out 20 spots with their own division team. If you can't make that happen, I don't know. So, um, yeah, it just felt like last offseason was very defensive heavy. So I agree with you. If it's alternating and it goes back to defensive heavy. Last offseason was defensive heavy. I feel like this offseason could be offensive heavy. That offseason and offense is like just switching my brain right now. But you know what I mean. I think this offseason will be offensive heavy. I think they will go out and try and hopefully valiantly address the wide receiver room. And we'll see what happens. I'm excited. I really am. I think the amount of times that John Harbaugh said the word wide receiver was the most he said it in like 3.5 years without throwing shade at them. Usually he's like, if you want to come here, you got to go block. But now maybe the tone's changed. Maybe John Harbaugh realized, in order for me to survive, I need to adapt a little bit. And they won a Super Bowl in 2012 when they went out and got some receivers. So I mean, it's just like that. I mean, Rashad Bateman is Torrey Smith, DeAndre Hopkins is Anquan Bolden, and then Jacoby Jones is Darius Slayton. And then who was our wide receiver for that year?
That was shit.
It wasn't Tannen Toss. No, I was too late.
No, that was wasn't that Brown?
Marlon Brown. I remember him having a 2013 snow game, but I don't know if he was drafted in 2012 though.
I'm not sure. I can't remember either. I'm having drawn a serious blank too. Now, one more question before we go ahead and sign off here because it's getting a little bit late from my end. What do you think is going to be the turnout for our draft crush from last season? The man, the myth, the legend, the Charlie Kohler.
The turnout. I mean,
what are your realistic expectations going forward for that man?
I don't know. I hope they don't resign Oliver. That's my real. I don't hope they resign Oliver. Oliver can go. He's a great blocking tight end, but why do you draft 2 tight ends and keep 4? And then already have 1 on the roster. So, I don't know, man. He's so good. He really is. And this is gonna sound crazy, terrible. If this isn't like Charlie Kolar, I'm drunk off the Kool-Aid, the Kolar Kool-Aid. Whenever Mark Andrews' contract becomes feasible to trade, I would let Kolar and Likely take over and trade Mark Andrews. And that's what not this year, maybe not even next year, but when it comes time to extend him again, and he's a great tight end. I just think that Kolar has something a little more than everybody else in the room. The way, and you see with Lamar Jackson, the way receivers sit down in zone, like that is what Lamar looks for. And there is nobody in the last 2 or 3 drafts I've watched that I think at the tight end position that knows how to understand leverage in zone, knows how to sit down, knows how to create separation. Besides Charlie Kolar. So,
the way that I saw Kohler the entire time that he was at Iowa State and during the little bit of time that I saw him in a Ravens uniform, he reminded me so much of Dennis Pitta. And or it was just coincidence that they got the same number as him. But that's literally every time I watch it, I'm like, he has the same flow, the same motion, the same potential to be that security blanket, but have such a smooth and I'm not saying not aggressive, but just able to be there and make it happen versus, how Mark Andrews tends to be that more aggressive tight end, receiving tight end, and perfect hybrid blocker. It's just like Kohler just knows how to get it right in there, smooth like a glove.
He Now this is gonna sound crazy. He's closer to Kelsey than Andrews is in terms of the style of player. Andrews is more of the bruising type. Kelsey's more the finesse. And I
Yes.
think I think Kolar is closer as a player. Now, it's a hot take, whatever. I did look up. It was Tannen Doss, 2012 receiver. So Rakeem Jarrett, Tannen Doss, that is a pro con. But back to the Kolar spot, and I think that it depends on what they see in him. It depends if he, catches the coach's eye. It's out of his hands, so to say. He's a good fucking player. I don't care. I don't know if we're allowed to curse on this show, but he's a good player. And
You just used our one F bomb.
okay, uh, he's a good player, and I think next year, yeah, 200, 300 yards. Depends on how much they integrate him. I mean, this next guy could come in and Shanahan's system, 22 personnel. He's running two tight ends out there, and they want to go big on the goal line and get Andrews, get Kolar out there. You have two big tight ends on the end. This the seal and run a little bit of play action. Maybe he gets 300 yards, five tutties.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree there. Now, we're going to go ahead and start to wrap up, get on out of here, and enjoy the rest of our night, enjoy the rest of our weekend. So, go ahead, let the people know where they can find you at.
You can find me at Mr. ___ Yuri on Twitter. That is three underscores. And that's about it.
All right. And as always, for me over here, BT Myers _. You can find me that on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and if you are watching this, go feel free to add me on Facebook. I'm going to be posting this link right after we clear, so you all can go ahead and rewatch it. Please do whatever you got to do to interact and talk with us and get more interaction so we can get a feel of y'all's football minds. But that's about it for me. I would like to say that on behalf of Marshall here as well. And we all hope you have a wonderful night.